Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming down the home stretch on our Toyota Tuesday for Tuesday of our Charlotte Motor Speedway Media Tour. We're very pleased to have our good friends and partners from Fox Sports to wrap up the afternoon before we head up to ZMAX Dragway this evening. And one quick teaser, we will be talking a little bit more about Fox Sports when we head up to ZMAX and the NHRA program that they will have in store this year as well. So to introduce our special guests that are up on the stage, please welcome Lou D'Amelio, the Senior Vice President of Communications for Fox Sports.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Obviously, we're looking forward to starting our 16th season as a home of NASCAR next month. Well, time is tight, so we'll introduce everybody and so we can get this going. It's really a panel. It really doesn't need any introduction, but we'll go through it. Eric Shanks, the President, CEO, and Executive Producer of Fox Sports. Next to Eric, obviously, is Jeff Gordon, four-time NASCAR Cup Series champion and the newest member of our broadcast team. Darryl Waltrip, three-time Cup winner and the NASCAR Hall of Fame member and a member of our team since 2001. Mike Joy, the voice of NASCAR on Fox since 2001. And Larry McReynolds, another analyst with Fox Sports since 2001. We're going to get going we've got a couple of questions we're going to start with before we get to yours. So first for Eric and for Jeff, how can you tell us how this all came together with Jeff joining our group after his retirement?
Well, he wanted to race another year, but the lure of the booth just couldn't cut him in. He was totally fine. The back was fine. Everything was totally fine. No, I mean I'll let you chime in because you're the one that ended up having to make the decision both ways.
Yeah, I had been having the thoughts about getting out of the car for a while. Had many conversations with Rick Hendrick, and I think when the conversation really went to the point of absolutely this is going to happen, I always thought that there was an opportunity for me in TV. If they were interested, I was certainly interested, and I called up Eric and said, "Hey, do you have any interest? This decision's coming, and I'd love to sit down and talk." And we did.
So Jeff, what were your takeaways from your time doing Xfinity Series games last season?
It was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. What I really enjoyed the most about it was, my concern is stepping out of the race car, not being in that competitive environment. How am I going to replace some of that, or how am I going to transition to the next chapter of my life? And I was excited that a live broadcast that I'm watching and analyzing and being a part of this sport that I've been passionate about and loved for so long, that is an adrenaline rush. And yeah, it has some challenges, and a lot more is coming on the longer races with the Cup Series. But I get to work with a great team, and that's what I also realized. It's such a team effort. So many comparisons to what I've done as a driver in the sport. As to what I'm already seeing in the broadcast booth, whether it was the Xfinity races that I did last year, or working with these guys when we did a rehearsal during the truck race at Texas, and then even following that up with December and January with a lot of meetings and talking about preparation and technology that they are bringing to the broadcast, and just how we work together as a team, coming up with great ideas. So it's been a lot of fun. I can't wait to get to Daytona.
Yeah, NASCAR on Fox didn't exist before Larry, Mike, and Darryl, and they created the mold. And it takes they've created what the NASCAR on Fox brand is, and when Jeff said that this was something that he was interested in, you do take a step back and say, okay, can Jeff carry on, the tradition and be a part of the group of what you guys have created, which is fun, which is entertaining, self-deprecating. I mean, these guys are busting on each other all the time. And, you look at the drivers that are coming out, and, how many other drivers have hosted SNL and have gone through makeup to be a taxi cab driver to freak somebody out in a Pepsi commercial? And so getting to know Jeff and getting to know, everything about his brand and the way that it fits well with what these guys have created, I think is going to be really special as well.
So Darryl, 16 years ago, you were exactly where Jeff is going to be this year. So, you know, what can you tell him to expect, and what kind of advice can you give him?
Yeah, it's people have asked me, so how do you know when it's time to retire? I said, well, in Jeff's case, it's when you can afford to. So I didn't have that luxury. When I quit driving, I was looking for a job, and TV happened to be needing somebody, and so it worked out perfectly for me. But what he's going to find out, the same thing I did, when you're out there in the race car and you got that full face helmet on with just a small perspective of what's going on around you, you can see what's in front of you, certainly got people talking to you. He's going to look at those cars, he's going to look at those drivers when we get to Daytona. He said, those guys are nuts. You'd have to be crazy to get out there and drive like that. You got to be crazy to get out there and act that way. That's what I saw. It wasn't the same as being in the car, but it was even better because now I could see all the cars. And now I could see that not only that guy I thought was a nut, all of them are nuts. And they all drive crazy. And that was something I had to get used to. Just being up there and getting a perspective of the whole field and trying to, keep abreast of what's going on. So, you don't have a helmet and you don't have a uniform.
I don't know. From what I've experienced so far, I may need one.
Yeah, you may need one. But you do have a nice tie and makeup, so it'll take its place.
So, Mike, how different will it be for you to work in a new voice after all this time?
Well, the last time I had two drivers in the booth with me was 16 years ago at CBS, and they were drivers from slightly overlapping eras. One Hall of Famer, Ned Jarrett, and Buddy Baker, who was just out of the car. So this will be similar, although their eras overlapped quite a bit for quite a number of years. And when Eric called me and said, hey, we're going to hire Jeff Gordon and be you three guys in the booth, what do you think? I said, don't let me get too far away from Larry Mack. I want him right there at arm's reach because in 2001, Fox pioneered the idea of a crew chief in the booth with a driver as analysts. So it's the best of both worlds for me. I'm going to be able to get all of my strategy and all of my technical details and all of the predictive analysis that Larry's given us for 15 years at arm's length while I referee a difference of opinion, on whose jet is faster or whose Suburban will out-accelerate whose. But this is great because having the crew chief element as a major part of our telecast allows the drivers to concentrate on the drivers and not on the technical minutia or the strategic aspect of what's going on pit road. So we did a practice race at Texas with the trucks. We had a lot of fun. And I think it's going to be a lot like we found 16 years ago. We're going to have three of us in the booth. We're all friends. We all know each other well. We all respect each other and respect each other's point of view, even though it doesn't necessarily agree with our own. So I'm really looking forward to this.
So, Larry, you've always been known for your preparation. Walk us through how you're getting ready for the opening of the season in Daytona, and the Daytona 500 in particular.
Yeah, I mean, it's no different than the first 15 years, and honestly, just even though it's totally different preparation, it's the same philosophy as I did as a crew chief for 18 years, trying to prepare for not only for the Daytona 500 but for the 2016 season. It's truly a labor of love, but obviously I'm always trying to keep up with what NASCAR is doing, and of course we know that's an ever-changing world. And another big thing that's happening this year, starting with Daytona, we've got 12 crew chief changes in the sport. That's like the NFL having 12 head coach changes. So I'm trying to learn as much about these new combinations that's going to be out there. I try to spend time at the race shops. We're working on a trip to Akron, Ohio, where I can dig into what Goodyear's doing for the future with this rule change, trying to get into the wind tunnel with a race team to truly show the fan. All we hear is the new aero package, the new aero package. We're going to try to show them what this new aero package is in the wind tunnel. And the other thing I work on during the off season, our bosses challenged us for years It's easy to tell you the stats of these drivers. They're normally right on the screen. But anything we can do to personalize these drivers. And to me, a wake-up call, Fox, as they do every year, they did the World Series a few years ago with Joe Buck and Tim McCarver. And I was watching very intently, and it was the San Francisco Giants. And nobody knew nothing about the San Francisco Giants. But by Game 4, I knew about the San Francisco Giants. And actually, I started pulling for them a little bit because Joe and Tim did a really nice job of personalizing those players. And that's the other thing that I try to do during the off season as well is find as many stories as I can about these drivers.
Thanks. Okay, I think we're ready to open it up for questions. There are microphones around, so I don't know if you want to wait till the mic gets there. Let's go right here.
Hello, gentlemen. Stan Creekmore with RPMTonight.com. I know each of you pretty well. I actually have two questions. Jeff, compare what it's going to be like, you think, as a rookie this year as it was when you were a rookie at your very first NASCAR races way back when.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned just a little bit ago, there's so many similarities that I'm seeing in things that I've experienced as a driver. And I think the one thing I experienced as a driver as a rookie at Daytona in 1993 was the unknown. It's not knowing exactly what to expect, what's coming at you. As a veteran, you feel like you've kind of experienced just about everything and you're prepared for anything that gets thrown at you. And for me, that's why it's so crucial for me to build this bond and us to have this chemistry, because I'm going to rely on them a lot to help me get through the unknowns. Up to this point, all the debriefs and all the preparation and ideas that are out there and running around all over the place doing promos has been very, very similar from an off-season standpoint. Once those cars get on the track, it's going to be all new to me. And I'm anxious and excited about the challenge, but I'm also a little nervous about the unknowns.
Okay, thank you. And Larry, when you go to Akron, Ohio, and look in on Goodyear, will you spend any time looking at the 17-inch tire that they're prepared to make and NASCAR just isn't quite ready to use yet?
Yeah, I mean, I'll look at everything they'll let me look at and then some. But, yeah, I'm going to try to stay more in the moment. And, of course, that's the other challenge, Stan, that we have, that I have, is my role is really not changing, to Mike's point. I'm still going to be breaking down strategy and technical terms and rules. But at the same time, I have to be careful. I don't want to get earlobe deep, because that's going to turn a viewer off as well. We want to explain it. We want to simply explain it. We want to be concise about it. So I guess I'll look at anything they've got, but am I going to come back and talk about it on our broadcast, something that we may not even be using? Probably not.
Okay, we're going up that way.
Yeah, Wolfgang Monser from Germany, Rennsport Press Agency. I'm sorry, I didn't understand it very well. I just want to double check if I understand the situation with your TV company. If I understood correctly, Jeff, Darryl, and Larry are analysts of the races. Is this correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. In case, what will happen if the three analysts, Larry, Darryl, and Jeff, have a different opinion about the race? Did they fight in the booth?
That's good. That's good.
That's
We'll
good?
be right back.
That's good TV. Mike Joy will take us to break.
So you not come to a common opinion. You can
No.
have different opinion. Okay.
No, because the viewers are going to have different opinions. Okay. And frankly, I welcome a divergence of opinion. I remember one. I think it was Daytona. We had it was July. It was a Daytona race. We had a caution with 6 laps to go, and you said not getting tires. You said I'm getting 2 tires, and I said, well, I watched yesterday's race, and the winner got 4, and we didn't agree, but we respect each other, and we can respect each other's point of view and difference of opinion. We've never had, to your question, a fight in the booth.
But normally the driver wins out. I speak from the crew chief experience. As Earnhardt told me when I called for 2 tires, he'd say, I want 4, I'm in, I'm not leaving till you give me 4.
4 tires did win the race, by the way.
That's the only reason he brought that up, is because he was right. There's one time he was right, he brought that up.
What Todd Parrott say? Even a blind squirrel finds a nut now and then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we're going right there.
Yes, for Jeff, how comfortable and confident are you that the 24 car is in good hands? And what do you think? What kind of learning curve is Chase in for compared to your own experience as a rookie?
I think he's in extremely good hands. I think the team's in extremely good hands too to have him as a driver. I think that when I think of you moving to this position and being in the booth, the biggest challenge that I see that I'm going to have is not showing too much bias towards that 24 team. I love those guys. They're like family to me. So is Rick Hendrick. And I have been such a huge supporter of Chase coming there. And the timing just worked out so perfectly for him to come along, for me to move on, and for us to come off the season that we came off of. I mean, the biggest thing for a young driver, any driver, is confidence, believing in what they are doing out there on the track, and for him to only have to focus on what he needs to do because he knows he's coming into a championship caliber program after seeing what we did the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think some of these young guys actually are going to be at an advantage, not a disadvantage, because with the aero package change, Chase doesn't have any experience with any package. And so he kind of starts with a clean sheet of paper. And then, as Jeff said, he's stepping into a car with Alan Gustafson and that crew that's, Jeff fought for a championship. So I think Chase in pretty good hands. I think he's going to have some ups and downs. I think he's going to have some good weekends. He's going to have some disastrous weekends, but that's what rookies do.
Going right up there.
Zach, is that going to happen in the booth too?
No.
I hope we're as forgiving in the booth as we are on the racetrack.
Zach Catanzarelli, front stretch. For both Dale and Jeff, you had years of conducting interviews in front of the camera and having that television experience. So how would you say that has helped you or will help you when it comes to now having a career out of it?
Well, one of the things, Jeff and I have talked about this, and it's the hardest thing for a driver is when someone asks you a question, you want to elaborate. You don't want to be one of those drivers that says, yep, car run good, yeah, well, the boys back to shop, and I'd like to thank all my sponsors and that kind of thing. And so that's something that as a driver, it's one thing to answer a question, but as an analyst, it's really hard to ask questions and get answers from other athletes. It's one of the hardest things I had to learn to do. If you asked me a question, I could keep you entertained for the next hour. But when I had to go and ask individuals questions, I had to really dig hard and think hard as to what I wanted to ask that person to get the most out of them. So that's the thing that I've found as an analyst and doing interviews is knowing what questions I asked to get the driver to respond in a positive kind of way.
Yeah, I would just follow up with, it's going to take time. I don't expect to just nail it right away. I will say all my years of being in front of a camera or interacting with the production of a race, being on TV has certainly given me some confidence in myself of what I'm saying, thinking about what's going on about the question and trying to answer it. But being on the other side of that, coming up with a thought with no question really being placed at you, and then having to do it all within about 20 or 30 seconds and then go to a break or go on to another subject or something just happened on the track, and having somebody talking in your ear, those are the challenges that I see coming that are only going to happen through experience where you get used to it.
Believe it or not, my experience has been that people don't like slick. They don't like something that's overproduced. They want you to be yourself. And if you put your foot in your mouth, you just kind of laugh about it, laugh at each other, and move on. That's what most fans seem to enjoy the most, and I know that from experience. So I think that's how we roll. He did the NFL game pregame show Sunday, and he said, "Boy, those guys have a lot of fun." I said, well, "That's the Fox way. We've always been able to be ourselves, and if we make a mistake, we laugh about it and move on." And that's why I've loved working I couldn't work for anybody else. It's been the ideal job for me. They let you be yourself, your personality, what you know, and put it to good use.
There are only three rules. Tell the story, explain why, have fun, don't screw it up. Those were the three commandments.
I'm really focused on that last one.
Don't worry.
Yes, Barry Richmond, Piedmont Broadcasting Corporation. This question's for Jeff. After all these years of the so-called off-season as a driver, So what was the off season like, not having to face getting in the car for 2016?
You know, that's the interesting thing is really I mean, there's a very small fraction of maybe if I would have had a test, say, over the off season, which there's not a lot of testing, off season testing that's happened in the past couple of years, but the 48 team I know went to Las Vegas this year. Had that been the 24 car, then that's what I would have been, missing out. Other than that, I mean, we have debriefs on Tuesday. They had a big production meeting in December. I went to the banquet. I've done some photo shoots and some promos. I mean, honestly, it's been almost exactly the same preparation, except for I'm not talking about things that they're doing to the car to prepare for a race, and I'm not in the car, but that wasn't that much different the last couple of off seasons. Where it's really going to change is when I get down to Daytona and I'm in the booth and I see cars rolling out on the track, and it's going to hit me, I think, at that moment. And on one hand, I'm super excited because there's so many great things to talk about, and it's Daytona and the Daytona 500, and I'm in this new position that I'm so I'm just already got an adrenaline rush. They're going to have to shut me up when I get up there because I'm just excited. But other than that, it's really been very, very similar, and I like that. I like that because I don't want to change 180 degrees of what I've been doing. I think it's nice to be able to go into something that feels very natural.
Yeah, we're going to have weigh-ins. When we get to Daytona, drivers always have to weigh in. So we're going to have weigh-ins, minus his wallet. And then when we get to the end of our 16 races, we get to June, end of June, we're going to have a weigh out. And I bet you he gains more weight than I do.
I might lose more hair, but I don't know if I'm going to gain more weight. We'll see.
Now, Larry.
Easy. Yeah, who's competing?
Right here.
Who's competing in this?
It's what you start with, what you end
I knew
with.
when he turned this way what road he was about to go down.
And that's going to be the toughest thing. I can, with a look, get the right comment out of Larry and out of Darryl because we've made this movie so many times. And Jeff's going to, as you can hear, Jeff's going to fit into this just fine.
And I'm just wondering, who's governing the rules on this weigh-in because I know how to push the gray area just like a crew chief does when it comes to weigh-ins.
But I've told Jeff with DW, once in a while you have to say, look, man, you dug this hole yourself. You're on your own, man. I can't dig you out of this one. You're way too deep.
And Larry loves it when I turn to him. I'll be talking about something. I'll say, and Larry, what's that crew chief's name?
Crew chief.
All right, we're going to take one more from the crowd now, and then we want to have time for one-on-ones. So there's somebody way back in the dark that's got a question.
Yeah, I'm sure y'all probably can't see me. Clear in the back. Jake Young from WJHL in Johnson City. One part for Jeff, one part for Darryl. Jeff, when you come there in April, you're going to have a terrace named after you. What do you expect that experience to be like at Bristol? And then, Darryl, you've been through that before. You have a grandstand. So what do you think it's going to be like for Jeff?
I mean, I think that was one of the greatest honors that I received in 2015. And I'll tell you, it's more than just having a terrace, and your name attached to it. It's that I love Bristol. It's one of my favorite racetracks, if not the favorite. There's something special about that place, whether you're a driver, whether you're a fan. I was able to be in the booth for an Xfinity race last year. It was special from up there, too. So I'm extremely excited to be there to see that and to know that my name is attached to the sport in a way that's historical, that's meaningful, and that I've seen other legends like DW and Yarborough and Earnhardt and Petty and Pearson, throughout the series on all these different tracks. It's something that you hope as a driver you one day can achieve enough to have your name or your face attached to a grandstand or a terrace.
Yeah, I think it. As you go through your career, you have places you love, tracks, and normally they're tracks that you did well the first time you ever went there, and that's the way Bristol was for me. And I'm like Jeff, it's probably my favorite racetrack of all time, and it's an honor. It's not just that my name is on a grandstand or that my name is connected to the Speedway. It's an honor to have had the success there, have a grandstand with your name on it, and have people. It's kind of fun actually, and it's kind of thrilling. People say, "Hey, I sit in your grandstand," and you know, not every track that you go to has a grandstand with your name on it. So,
Mike, you know what the opening comments in Bristol are going to be? My grandstand's bigger than your terrace.
Darryl loves Bristol so much that he once showed up to do a Fox race with no voice and insisted on doing the race anyway.
I did. That happened one time.
I remember
The fans were elated.
I remember my first Cup race. Watching as a fan, I was still in the Busch Grand National Xfinity Series now at the time. I remember standing up in the spotter stand, watching this guy right here wear them out, all diamonding it up to the top when it was pavement, and getting a big run off the corner. It was awesome. So it's amazing how full circle life and racing can come. And now I get to stand next to this guy and hopefully bring some entertaining thoughts and ideas to the fans that are going to be listening and watching.
Yeah, I think a challenge for Jeff is, you know, he goes back to 1992, and so he kind of knows what happened from that point forward. He's going to have to do a lot of research and a whole lot of homework to figure out what happened in 1982 or maybe in 1972, because those when you go to Bristol, it has a history. And he mentioned Petty and Pearson and Cale, and so it's okay to know what happened the last 10 or so years, but it's kind of nice to know what happened 25 or 30 years ago too, because that's what makes Bristol the last great Coliseum, is what those guys did there before we all came along. So
well, I expect when I buy dinner, like I'm expected to do as a rookie this year,
That's
that I'm going to get some of the. That's my payback.
I'm here for you, brother.
I want those stories.
I'll just give you a brief analogy. I think the challenge for Jeff would be the same challenges for a photographer who has been going to this track every year shooting trackside, and suddenly you're on the roof, and your view from 10,000 feet is completely different than the view out the windshield or the view from behind the guardrail. And that's going to be different, but it's going to be fun to hear him, to hear his comments on that.
But Lou, if I could just add one thing, I go back to the conversation that Eric Shanks and I had back in May when we were talking about this change that was coming for 2016. And I say this with sincerity. Over 170 Sprint Cup Series wins sitting there and 7 Sprint Cup Series championships. How in the world could it not be good for a broadcast of a NASCAR race?
Well, look, Larry, between the 5 of us, we have exactly 200 wins up here on the stage today, including yours and Mike's and mine. Exactly 200.
We're still at 7 championships, but
That's okay. That's right.
yeah, and no big deal. We're just
We're
saying.
proud of that.
We can add some Daytona 500 to that.
Okay, we're going to get a quick picture of everybody, and then we'll do the one-on-ones. We're going to do them in here, so you don't have to go anywhere.